Welcome everybody to this Sunday morning service here at Salt Lake Christian Church. The story I have for you all this morning is the story of the never-ending flour and oil. And so, at this time in the land of Israel, there was a great drought. You see, God had told his prophet Elijah to speak to the nation and to proclaim that no rain would fall on that land until the Lord said so. And so this caused a great drought in the region and a famine as well. And during this time, God spoke to Elijah and told him to go to a certain city where God had commanded a certain widow to provide for him during this season of hardship. And so Elijah, being the prophet of God, did as God said, and he went to this city, and while he was approaching the gates to the city, he met this widow just outside the city collecting sticks. And as he met her, he asked her for a drink of water. And she responded and recognized him as the prophet. And so she went to go fetch him something to drink. And as she was going, Elijah asked her also to go and bring him a piece of bread to eat. However, with this request, she turned to him and said to Elijah that she had nothing to give him to eat, basically, that she had no bread baked. And in fact, she was collecting these sticks to go back to her home and use what little flour and oil she had to make her and her son's last meal so that they could eat it and then perish. However, Elijah spoke to her once again, saying, "Go and do as you have said, make the bread, but first feed me, and then feed yourself and your son." And the woman thought for a minute, like, well, how could I do it? I don't have enough. I barely have enough for us. If I gave it to you, we couldn't eat. But Elijah said to her, "If you first feed me, the Lord will not allow your jug of oil nor your jar of flour to empty until this drought is over." And so the woman listened to Elijah, and she went and baked what little bread she could, emptied her handful of flour and the pittance of oil she had left, and made the dough and baked it. And when she was done, she took the piece of bread and brought it with the water to Elijah and gave it to him to eat. And afterwards, I imagine, with a little bit of skepticism, she probably went back to look in her house in that jar and in that jug. And when she went back, she found that the jar and jug that she had just emptied to make her last piece of bread were full to the brim, more so than they were when she had just emptied them. And Elijah stayed with this widow and her son for the length of that drought. And throughout that whole time, that jug and that jar never emptied. And they were able to live off of the bread that they made from it. And so we see from this story not only an awesome act of faith that the woman had, faith in Elijah as the prophet, but in God who he spoke for. But we also see the awesome provision that God has for his people. No matter what season of drought you are in, God is able to provide more abundantly than we can imagine. So turn to him in your time of need. Thank you. Let's bring the music up.